Our next honoree, when we were talking about this and writing this up, we were thinking that it's just not possible to overstate the importance of the legacy of our next honoree to Off Broadway, the exciting, daring, innovative theater that everyone is talking about this afternoon would not exist without the life's work of Theodore Mann. Ted Mann was the co-founder and artistic director of the Circle in the Square when that theater gave birth to Off Broadway with the legendary 1952 production of Summer and Smoke, which starred Geraldine Page and was directed by Jose Quintero. And he went on to produce The Iceman Cometh with Jason Robards, which revived the reputation of Eugene O'Neill as a great American playwright, and Othello with James Earl Jones, and Desire Under the Elms with Colleen Dewhurst and George C. Scott, and it goes on, but you know what? We haven't got time for all that, so I'm just going to refer you to Ted's book, Journey in the Night, which I can tell you will reward reading. It's a thrilling story of the early days of the founders of Off Broadway. And luckily I don't have to go on because we have Ted's co-founder with us tonight, this afternoon, Paul Libin, the Executive Vice President of Jude Jansen, the President of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and of course the founding producing director with Ted Mann of Circle in the Square. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Libin.
Thank you, Peter. It's so extraordinary to be here up at Sardi's because in the early days of Off Broadway, you just walked by Sardi's. our Sardi's in the old Off Broadway days was Louis in Sheridan Square and Cafe Chino on Bleecker Street. The idea about Broadway, it was forbidden. I just want to set the record straight. I am not a co-founder of Circle and Square. Jose and Ted started Circle in '51. Just with the passion of the theater. And what was important in those days was they found a little place in Sheridan Square. They started that theater on February 17th, 1951. And they lived there for about 10 years and then moved to Bleecker Street, 159 Bleecker Street. And we lived there for a long time. I joined Circle with Ted when he walked into a little off-Broadway theater that I had, where we had produced I and others had produced a revival of Arthur Miller's The Crucible. And it was about 50 years ago, about 5 months from now, that he walked in one day and we started talking about a show that he was doing, which was 6 characters, the Pirandello play, In Search of an Author. And we talked, and we had another meeting, we talked, and we just said, well, why don't we just do it together? We shook hands. Shook hands in 1963. It was a handshake that was a bond of a partnership that lasted a few months short of 50 years when Ted passed away in February. Ted was what one would call the last of the Mohicans. He was a producer, he was a director, an artistic director. His passion, unyielding, was all about the theater. He was tenacious. He never gave up. I can remember being in this building when Blaine Thompson was here. We'd get reviews, and we'd start to read the reviews, and sometimes they were good. When reviews are good, it's never a problem. When reviews are not good, it's sometimes a problem. We start adjusting the phraseology of the critic. And Freddie Golden and Don Josephson would be sitting in the corner, and they'd start shaking their heads, and we'd say, well, let's just try. The worst that can happen is the Times would just send it back, and we would have this brawl over what we could include in a review to praise what we had done, even though the critics had not embraced it. The important thing is that Ted, whole life, was committed to the theater, his family, his kids. Unfortunately, his sons are not here. One of them is with his son graduating from high school, and the other son is living in France. So it's a special honor for me to receive this. But the most important thing about Off Broadway is that it is the lifeblood of the American theater, and you could throw in television and motion pictures in the same sweep of enclosure. When you realize, historically, that the list of actors that I'm going to list, first work really was at Circle in the Square off Broadway in the 50s and some of the 60s. Colleen Dewhurst, Geraldine Page, George C. Scott. Joe Baru, who became an off-Broadway producer, who's not with us anymore. Peter Falk, Salome Jens. Irene Pappas's first production in New York was off-Broadway at the Downtown Circle. Dustin Hoffman, Jose Quintero. They all represent a presence in the theater that rose to the highest ranks of accomplishment. And when you realize the plays that were written by people like Federico Garcia Lorca, Eugene O'Neill, Jean Genet, Dylan Thomas, Ethel Fugard, Truman Capote, Thornton Wilder, Tennessee Williams, not to be forgotten, Euripides, Jules Feiffer, William Shakespeare. They were all the plays that were done in those off-Broadway days. And the real magic of the theater is the aspect of collaboration. And Ted embodied that. He also directed, but he also hired other directors. Jose directing, designers who went on to reach the heights of their profession. Stage managers. Michael Ritchie was a stage manager for us at Circle, and now he runs the Center Theater Group in California. Collaboration. Susan Frankel, who's with the Circle in the Square, is now our general manager, has been with us for over 30 years, and she's only about 23 now. So, to all of you, Off-Broadway is so special. I remember when we started the parent group of Off-Broadway, the League of Off-Broadway Producers and Directors, I think it was 1957, 58, 57. I was the first president. And occasionally at a meeting, one of the members would say, Paul, when are we going to have an election? And I would say, first of all, you were not recognized. And second of all, if you look at the Constitution carefully, there's no provision for elections. I remained the president of the League of Off-Broadway Theaters for 30 years. After all, in those days, actors were getting $15, $20 a week. We couldn't just realize an extraordinary gain in salaries. We didn't have stagehands. But everybody pitched in. Everybody did everything. And when I finally stepped down, they had a supper for me. And one of my colleagues got up and said, Paul, you really missed your calling. You should have run the South American country. So I accept this award on behalf of Ted, my dear beloved partner, we were like brothers. I mean, we hardly even ever fought. We just did shows. We just kept doing shows. And Ted was like the godfather of Off-Broadway, and it's marvelous that all of you honor him with this tribute. I know he would be very privileged to receive this, and in his spirit, I accept it on behalf of his sons and Susan and all the people who, through the history of Circle in the Square, collaborated to make the theater the magic place that all of you are doing now. And there are people sitting in this room now who will start their careers off-Broadway, and 20 years from now, they will be the bright stars of the world of the theater. Thank you.